guys, welcome back to my summer. My name is Amanda. If you haven't been here before, if you have, welcome back. In today's video, I'll be doing it's gonna be like more of like a vlog style video of me creating a custom wedding dress for a customer. I have been working. I know I haven't posted any videos, but I have been working a lot, like a lot. So I decided to turn on the camera today for you guys to go behind the scenes with me while I'm working here in my studio to create a custom wedding dress for a client. So let's do it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut out my pattern pieces. I'm using satin as the base and also a sequin fabric as the overlay. I'm going to cut them both out at the same time. I also like to use my disappearing ink pen because it makes it more accurate when you cut it out. So you just like trace around the pattern pieces and then you remove the pattern piece and cut it out that way instead of actually pinning the pattern pieces to the paper, because then you end up cutting the paper and cutting your pattern. So I'm gonna do that and then we can move on to the next step. All right, so it is day 2. It's the next morning. I got all of my pieces cut out last night. I cut them out of satin and I also cut them out of the sequiny fabric. So I got all of those cut out. Now I need to cut, oh, and then I also cut my side panels and my back panels in corset mesh because those are gonna be corset mesh. I also need to cut these from interfacing, my bodice pieces from interfacing, as well as lining, which I don't have the lining yet. I need to order the lining today, as well as the rest of the fabric for the skirt. So I cut those out. I'm gonna work on what I got. I'm just gonna go ahead and continue to chuck away with what I have. I also have the bodice panels that go with this dress as well, so we can get a lot done while we're waiting on the lining fabric and the organza to come in. I guess I got scraps. I'm going to be using the regular interfacing that I always use. If you guys follow me for a while, I use Pellon's SF101. It's like a cotton interfacing, a woven interfacing. Once you use this, you will never go back to using that other stuff that melts on your iron. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my two bodice pieces, my center front and my side front. From interfacing, and then I'm going to fuse it on and we can get to working. I really am debating on whether or not I should interface my skirt panels. This is the fabric that I usually use for my wedding dresses, but this one has like bodice applique, like a custom lace applique that's sewn to the whole entire dress. So I'm thinking that I may need that extra support from that interfacing will give. I don't know yet. I could also underline with muslin, which I'm not sure if I'm gonna spend time doing that, to be honest, y'all. So let me get this all, these two pieces interfaced, and then we'll figure out if we're going to do the rest of the pieces and we'll move forward. Alright, so I've got all of my pieces interfaced. I did decide to go ahead and interface all of my skirt pieces too, just because the bodice applique that I have is really heavy. So I want to make sure that there's no like puckering and stuff. So now it is time to attach attach our sequin layer to our satin layer. So this is also another layer that's going to be attached. So what I'm going to do is just place a few pins. And if you guys have followed me for a while, you know I did a video like back in the beginning about how to underline something. This is very similar, except this is obviously an overlay versus underlining. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hand baste it. You can try to baste it by machine, but it does cause almost like a bagging effect. So I try not to use the machine. You could also like curve this or put it on like your knee, your leg or something, and stitch it that way, just because of, you know, how the body folds. The outer piece is going to curve less than the inner piece, but it's like a very slight difference. So I don't know if I'm gonna do that or not. I'm debating. I guess I can also use this smaller mannequin as well. Use the curved parts of it like that. And then I always had like lots of pre-threaded needles, pre-threaded, pre-waxed needles. My last project I did had a lot of hand sewing, so I'm gonna start from the bottom. And it's gonna be almost like a pad stitch, but excuse my nails, it makes life harder. So don't be making fun of me in the comments. So I'm gonna go ahead and stitch up all of these panels. I'm gonna stitch one row of stitching down the middle, and then I'm also going to stitch around the entire perimeter. These just have to be basting stitches. We're gonna take them out, so they don't have to be pretty or perfect or evenly spaced or anything like that. They just need to be able to secure the two layers together, so that when we go ahead and assemble the bodice and the skirt pieces, that they're not all over the place. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of everything, and then we can move on. All right, so I just finished basting all of the sequin layer to the main layers of all of the pieces. It's taking me about 3 hours to do this. So if this is a custom piece that you're making for someone else, make sure that you charge accordingly for your time, because that is time consuming to baste these overlays on. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and assemble all of my pieces as normal. And I'm going to also sew my side seam, any seams that are connected corset mesh to corset mesh. I'm going to sew those with French seams, but I'm going to assemble all the easy seams first, and then I'll go back to our corset mesh. Alright, so fair warning, I'm probably gonna look progressively worse the longer this vlog goes on. But I've got all of my pieces assembled. I've got my my front piece. These pieces do look weird because of the design of the dress. Let me move this back a little bit so y'all can see. Boom. Okay, so I got my front piece here. This is the shape of it. It has like side cutouts, but uniquely shaped side cutouts. And I did also add some structure to these, so there'll be two lines of boning on this. Got my skirt front, skirt back, as well as my back corset pieces, which I also added 2 lines of boning in there. There'll be boning on the side seam as well. The next thing I'm gonna do, which is different from what I usually do, is I'm actually going to bone my front piece here. I'm boning this because when we did a fitting, I'll probably insert some footage here. Well, I'll have to ask her first, but if she says yes, I'll insert some footage here. I had some rippling here when we did a fitting. The dress was kind of curving forward. It was collapsing on itself. And I feel like if I put the structure in the lining layer, it's not going to be enough to support this very heavy panel that we're going to put on here. We do have interfacing in our outer layer now, but I'm also going to add quite a few rows of boning here onto our center front piece to really support that. And then obviously we're gonna put the panel on the top, so that's gonna cover our lines of stitching. And I'm stitching in white, so you're really not gonna be able to see that. I still do have all of my basting stitches in here, which I'll take out at the very end before I add our panels. So let's go ahead and add our boning, and then we can get all of this assembled and put together. And then all we would have to do is add the panels, put the skirt on, and the dress is almost complete. All right, so I'm gonna start by marking up my bodice. I like to mark it up. Can you guys see? Probably not enough. Okay, I think that's better. So I'm gonna start by marking up my bodice. I like to use these gridded rulers like this. Yes, I need to get a new one, but it works for what I need it for now. And I'm going to measure out my seam allowance around the neckline. So that's 1/2 inch. And 1/2 inch. Just this way. You just want to do it until they meet, so you know. Okay, boom, that's our centermost point. So we don't want our boning to really go past that. Same with the top of our princess seam. And usually I really don't try to put bones all the way up the princess seam, just because I kind of don't like the way that looks. Like I usually stop on the underbust and then put my cups here. But this panel is so heavy, y'all. So I need all of this support. So I'm thinking I'm gonna add a center bone, which if you guys wanna make sure that you're in the center, you can just fold it in half and kind of crease it there. And then, no, center right where the center is. Okay. So we want that center point to this center point. So we're gonna add a bone here. Okay, and then I'm also going to add some supportive bones. I don't want the bone to be up in here. So I kind of want my bone to stop here, because I don't want it to be in my seam allowance for where our side cutout is either. So I'm going to put a bone here, and then I can also put some supportive bones. So I'm going to come down 1 inch. And I'm gonna put some diagonal supportive bones about, let's say, 1.5 inches from our center bone. So this one is really gonna be boned up, because I know my bride wants to be snatched too, so we're gonna snatch her. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kind of don't like putting bones up in this area. I don't want it to get a funny shape on me. And we are going to have, we got bones here, so we have bones supporting the side of our bust. I think that'll be good for now. Yeah, but we'll see. Okay, so I wasn't paying attention to the screen, and I think that footage was super, super bright. So if it was, I just want to show you my boning pattern for this. So I have a center bone, and then I've got 2 supporting bones on either side. I came down 1 inch from the top. I came down 1 inch from the top of my center, and then 1.5 inches from either side of the bone. So that's going to create my 1, 2, 3 bones, and then I'm also going to do bones up the princess seams using 1/2 inch wriggling boning as usual. I am going to, instead of capping it off, I'm going to just burn and melt the stuff, and I've never had any issues. Please don't come for me in the comments. I don't have time for that shit. Stuff, I'm sorry. Okay, so my first bone is here. You kind of want to center the bone on that line. You can see it through the boning. And then you want to come on top down the other side too. You don't want to go down and then back up, because then it creates like weird puckering on the fabric, especially since we do have an overlay. Okay. That's my center bone. Now I'm going to do our two side supporting bones. I do like to have an angle. Y'all can see that in my boning. Oh. Alright, so I've got all of my bones on here. I've got them all pressed and shaped. And now I'm just going to go ahead and continue to assemble the dress. Alright, so I've got my front assembled. I put my boning in there, everything, and then I took out the majority of my basting stitches. I did leave all the basting stitches around the neckline and the sides. So now I'm going to put my panel on. I do try to keep all of my clients, I buy them like individual containers so that I can just keep all the stuff that's pertaining to their projects in that container to keep myself as organized as I can be, which we all know is not very organized. So this was our first attempt at this dress, and I kind of treated it as a mock-up. I'm the queen of recutting, and you see like how heavy this panel is, and then it's just kind of flimsy underneath the panel. So I'm going to go ahead and take all this off. And it's not, you know, you may look at it as a waste of fabric. It is what it is. This is like maybe a quarter of a yard of fabric. So I don't mind recutting if it means that something is going to look better than when it looked the first time around I did it, which 9 times out of 10 I knock it out the park the second time. So I mean, it is what it is. All right, so I am going to this panel is so heavy. I hope you guys can see the entire thing. All right, I'm gonna lay this on here. And the object for me really is to align these panels here. This is, I'm assuming, made to stretch quite a bit. So that's what I'm gonna do. Unfortunately, I don't have a dress form that fits this bride because I would usually do this for sure on a dress form. I think dress forms are very important, are a very important part of dressmaking. I don't think that you can get a lot of these tight-fitted, well, I forgot my baby was here. I don't think you can get a lot of these tight-fitted type of gowns without a dress form, unless you're draping directly on your client, which I did when she was here, but I remade the whole thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and continue pinning this around. I'm making sure that I'm aligning these cutout pieces first, because when I got these panels made, I didn't give them my pattern pieces. So they just made it according to her measurements, and they did a great job. The panel looks amazing, but it doesn't really align with my pattern as well as I would like it to. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finesse it. All right, so now that I have my center pinned, I'm gonna go ahead and use my ruler, and I'm gonna mark down my seam allowance. I'm gonna mark down my seam allowance throughout the entire, both sides, so that I can stretch the panel over and keep it just out of my seam allowance so that it gets caught up in the seam. Okay, so here I am dealing with the bust area. When they created the panels for me, they left almost like a dart shape around the bust. So what I'm doing is I am just pinning, pretty much I'm pinning the dart closed, and I'm trying to align the four strips of beading fabric that's there at the top. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut around it with my little scissors and then match them up so that it doesn't look like there was ever a slit there. If you have a hard time lining this up, you could also like cut a piece of applique off from the bottom or something like that. That can help you like cover that area too if you had a hard time aligning this, but it shouldn't be an issue. If you take your time, you should be good. I'm also going to take some time and hand baste most of this panel on just so that it doesn't move when it's being worn. So I just threw that on my dress form really quick. The dress form isn't the same size as the bride, but it's just the front. So I kind of stretched it towards the back so that it is as tight as possible. And then I'm going to use some basting thread. It's like a pre-wax basting thread that I get from Wall Walk. I'll leave it in the description box below. And I'm just going to go ahead and hand baste all throughout the bodice applique. Okay, so I may or may not have forgotten that I was recording the making of this dress. So this is like 4 or 5 days later. I've got a lot done. I did spend a lot of time hand sewing all three of the panels to the dress. I think I showed that and to some extent, and then I caught it up in the side seams and the center back seam. So then I ran out, I realized I didn't have a zipper, so I think that's when I stopped. Yeah, so I went to Joann's and I got a zipper. And, okay, here it is. I'm like, I don't know where I put it, but here it is. I went to Joann's and got a zipper. So we can continue on with the making of this dress. I'm so stressed, y'all. I have this dress to make, I have an overskirt to make for this dress, I also have a veil to make for this dress, and then I have another wedding dress and reception dress for a different bride to make, as well as another reception dress for a different bride, and then another wedding dress and a flower girl dress for a different bride that I need to make all within the course of May. So I'm short staffed right now. I need to hire another dressmaker. Definitely. But I have some things in store that I don't want to mention because of the way my last endeavor went. So I'm just gonna wait until it happens and then I'll show you guys. But anyway, this is the huge ruffle skirt that I've been working on for one of the other dresses that I just mentioned. So I just have that there, and that's just the front. I have to also make one for the back. This was 37 yards of organza. So I need to order another 2 bolts. Or no, not 37, 34 yards. I need to order another 2 bolts of organza because it comes in 17-yard bolts. And then the dress that I'm working on also needs organza. It's just smooth organza. And then I like to use that as on my overskirt as well. Let me stop rambling though, and let's go ahead and get to finishing at least what we can finish of this dress off. All right, so this is what it looks like now. I have hand stitched down. Oop. Oh, focus. Okay. I have hand stitched down a lot of the areas. So primarily around this area on both sides, as well as down the princess seam, down the center front. I do almost like a pad stitching, but invisible pad stitching down, and then it's also caught up in the side seams. I'm sorry, y'all, this is probably super blurry. And it's also caught up in my center back seam there. So this is all stitched down. And I have to figure out what I want to do by here because we're doing a corset back. And then when I got the panels made, I definitely didn't tell them that we're doing a corset back. So I have to figure out how to shape that, but that is a problem that I will solve eventually. So my next move is to insert our zipper. All right, so I'm getting ready to start blinging this dress out. It already is blinged, but we're gonna add quite a few rhinestones across the bodice area. I'm using this thread that I got from wallwalk.com. It is, okay, so I'm adding random rhinestones to the top of the bodice. I'm using two different sizes, or actually three different sizes. I'm using some really tiny ones, some medium-sized ones, and then ones that are on the slightly larger side, but they're still not large. I don't know like the SS number or whatever. I don't know the number of them, but I'm using the ones that are in the setting that you hand sew on, and I'm just placing them all over the bodice. I think that added a little bit of sparkle, and we already have the sequin, we already have the beaded fabric, and then now we're going with some rhinestones to add a little bit more bling to this dress, and I think it turned out really nice. All right, so today I'm gonna work on the overskirt. We're doing like a detachable train thing. So my math for that was I kind of measured from princess seam to princess seam, which I got 29. And then I multiplied that by 3, which is like 89. But then I'm like, that's too much. So then I decided to do 60. So then I plugged it in on the circle skirt calculator. I'm going to do a full circle skirt. And so the radius ended up being 9 1/4. So I've got some pattern paper. Let me adjust the camera. Can you tell how to move this one? Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Alright, so I got some pattern paper here. Usually I will mark it on the fabric directly, but since I know that I want to make this like a bigger radius so that I can be able to pleat it back down, I'm just going to go ahead and do it on paper. So I'm going to use my yardstick to square a line across. And then my radius is supposed to be 9 1/4. So I'll mark my radius all around. And then connect those lines. So essentially this is what our pattern is going to be. It's obviously not as long as I need it to be because I need it to be a full length circle skirt, but I really don't trip on the length of it because I just need the radius of the circle to determine where I need to place seams if I need to place any. This would be like normally on a regular circle skirt, this would be on the fold, but since this will be open on the circle skirt, I'm going to add some additional to here as like some sort of a facing, so I can be able to turn it back and have that clean edge that you need for the front of a circle skirt. And then this would be our side seam, and then I need to cut a complete one on the fold for the back, which would be the back. So yeah, it makes sense in my head. Okay, y'all, don't get mad at me, but I totally forgot that I was recording the process of making this gown. So I did end up making the detachable train off camera, but I'm planning on doing this in some of my workshops over the summer anyway, so you guys can catch it there if you're interested in going to my workshops. But anyway, I have all of my layers pleated down to the right, I don't want to say circumference, to the right length of my of where I want it to sit on the bride. So now I'm gonna go, I am basting together all of these layers by hand. You could do it by machine too, but lately I've found a lot of tranquility in hand sewing. So I'm basting it together by hand. Then I'm gonna get a thin strip of buckram, And I'm also going to baste this in here to stabilize this, because this is a circle. It is a circle skirt, a very large one, but nonetheless it's still a circle. So the majority of it is on the bias, and it needs to be stabilized. I don't want it to warp out of shape, especially with the weight of this. And then after we do that, well, I need to find, my buckram has eluded me. I have no idea where it's gone. And then we're gonna go ahead and throw the lining in this and attach our hook and eyes, and it should be all done. Oh wait, then I need to hem the bottom with horsehair. So I'm going to continue to baste this. I'm just using large basting stitches just to really get through all the layers as quickly as possible. This is the longest I've ever worked on a wedding gown, y'all. I've been working on this gown for about a month, but it is the most detailed gown that I've ever done as well. So I'm really excited for this gown to be finished and for her wedding to take place, so that I can get some gorgeous photos and use them as promotion. I look a mess, so it is what it is. But I thought I had some 3 or 4 inch horsehair in my stash, but turns out I only have this really thin stuff, and then this thicker but still not thick enough. So I think I'm gonna place an order really quick for horsehair. I need to place a wall walk order anyway, because I need to get the cups and stuff like that. So I think what I'm gonna do, as I'm waiting on the lining fabric to be delivered, it's not even out for delivery yet, but it is in my city. They better hurry up. I'm going to finish working on the dress, I guess. So on the dress, I still have to, first of all, I'm going to redo the skirt portion because I really didn't like it. I did it really quick. It was super late at night. So I'm going to redo that. If you guys know me, you know I'm the queen of redoing things. I'm going to redo that. And then I'm also going to sew the loops for the corset back and get those put in there as well. And that will almost finish off that dress. All that will be left to do on the actual dress is the lining. So come on, FedEx. Okay, so I've got all of my skirt pieces cut out. It has taken forever. But when I do my tulle bottoms, like, you know, like the wedding dresses, I have like just the plain tulle circle skirt bottoms. I like to layer it in 3 separate fabric layers. So the first layer would be your lining fabric. You could also use satin, but I think satin kind of tends to weigh the dress down. So I like to use lining. And I finish the edge of the lining off, the hem of the lining off, with just a serge. I don't even turn it up and top stitch it down. I just literally serge it. Oh, sorry. The next layer is organza. Organza is very important to separate the tulle from the lining layer. And I also hem the organza with horsehair. You could, excuse me. You could also just serge the bottom and let it ride like that too. But I do like to hem the organza with horsehair because it gives the organza that already has body more body. I have both my lining layer and my organza layer cut as a flat circle skirt, so there's no gathering that needs to be done. And then on the floor here, I have 3 huge circle skirts cut from tulle. So I have 3 layers of that. They're cut as full circle skirts because I buy wide tulle, and those will be gathered down to the circumference of the organza layer, and then they will all be basted together and then added to the dress. So let's go ahead and sew all these layers. Alright, so I'm gonna start on the back closure. I have all of my loops made.
So what I'm gonna do is, when I got this panel made, I totally forgot to tell them that I'm doing a corset back, so they did the back as if I was gonna do a zipper. So now I need to figure out how to get some of this out of my seam allowance so that when I turn it back a half an inch, I'm not interfering with the beads. So I'm going to, I don't know, I guess I can try to cut some of this up, but the way they did this, I don't want all of my beads to come crumbling down. So I think I'm going to glue. I'm going to get some E6000 and glue some of the portions. I haven't baked it down currently. I'm going to glue some of the portions that I don't want the thread line to be interrupted and see what that does. Hopefully this doesn't fall apart on me.
Okay, so instead of doing all that, I just decided to go ahead and hand sew them down, just so I'm not dealing with any beads popping on me and stuff like that, because it was just gonna be a complete mess. I did trim off some of that extra into my seam allowance, but the majority of it I just folded back into the seam allowance and kind of just left it there. So I did hand sew it. I didn't have any problems with it coming up. I hand sewed it multiple times to make sure that it was very strong.
All right. So I showed you guys that I sewed down all the loops by hand. That's why they kind of look like cousins and not siblings, but it is what it is. I sewed them all down by hand, and then I turned my hem allowance inwards and whip stitched it down to just my corset mesh layer, so you can't see it from the outside. Now I turned back just a strip of corset mesh, and I'm using this for two purposes. Number one, I'm using this to hide all of my raw edges. I don't want my raw edges to be shown inside. This is a professional gown. And then number two, I'm also going to use this as a boning channel for my loops, so they don't buckle when she tries to lace it up, so it stays nice and flat. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and whip stitch this down. And this gown, oh my goodness, y'all, has so much hand stitching. I've been hand stitching a lot. Yeah, so it's just, this gown has taken me a lot of time, but I really love it. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to whip stitch this. And I also didn't worry about finishing off the edge of this bottom here. Please focus. Finished off the edge of the bottom because the lining is coming to here, so it'll be tucked down in with the lining. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to whip stitch this on. I'm going to use smaller whip stitches because my boning channel, this is a boning channel, so I don't want it to not be secure. And I will I guess update you when I'm finished with this. I also have to do the same thing for the other side. I haven't even sewn the loops on the other side yet, so I have to do the same thing for the other side as well. Okay, so I just finished the back. I still have to put the piece of boning in here, but this is what the loops look like on the back. I hand sewed the loops. Oh my god, it took me an hour for each side. Took forever. So I hand sewed this. Now I have to do the rest of my hem work. I already have my needle prepared. I'm just going to go ahead and secure this the panel the outer lace to the corset mesh. And you could realistically pad stitch this whole thing and have it all secured, but I think there's going to be enough tension back here that I don't need to do all of that. And I also don't want my bride to be looking at all of this stitching that I've done on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and secure down the rest of this, and then we can move on to adding the skirt, the lining, and the dress will be finished.
And like in true Amanda fashion, I didn't get any really finished photos of the dress, but I did hang it up and take a video of it, like I do all of my dresses when I ship them out, just to make sure that they are received in the same way that I ship them out. This dress, my bride actually decided that she wanted to wear heels, so I had to add like a 4-inch strip on the underskirt, but it still worked out. And this is what the entire dress ensemble really looks like on my dress form with the detachable train. I use hook and eyes to attach it. I also put appliques from the dress onto the train, and then I also made a veil that is matching. I hand sewed little flowers and rhinestones all over the veil, lace on the bottom, everything, and this is what it looks like. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm so sorry for my long break. I have been going through so much this year and I'm finally getting back to myself. Thank you guys for being so patient with me, and I'll see you in my next one.